As mentioned in our live intro, we are Team 1B, and we did our project this semester on Comcast. Here's the agenda of what we are going to talk about in our presentation today. To begin, we are going to briefly go over Comcast business lines. Then we are going to talk about their current position in the market, as well as their main strategy. Following this overview, we are going to dive a little deeper into each of their business lines, giving a little background on each, including some of our findings from our research throughout the semester, along with recommendations for each line. Finally, we will wrap things up with some concluding thoughts. Comcast's business lines include cable communications, cable networks, broadcast television, filmed entertainment, and theme parks. As you all can see, cable communications, the line I did my research on, is by far their most significant line, making up approximately 72% of their profits last year. This comes as no surprise, especially given their roots. Founded in 1963, Comcast originally went by the name American Cable Systems and was a small cable operator based in Mississippi with 5 channels and 15,000 customers. Where are they now? Currently, they are the largest mass media and communications company in the world by revenue. They have over 21 million subscribers, and their stock price has risen steadily in the past couple years, aside from a recent dip when this chart was copied in last week. Regardless, Comcast has grown at an astounding rate. One Comcast Center in Philadelphia, the tallest building in Pennsylvania, which houses their corporate headquarters, pictured on the right, serves as a strong symbol of their growth. How has Comcast gotten to where they are now? A lot of this is attributable to CEO Brian Roberts, pictured in the middle, and his vision. A few years ago, Comcast made a big move in buying the majority of NBC Universal, which involved rebranding themselves by way of incorporating the famous NBC Peacock logo. In an interview following this deal, Roberts said, "One of my earliest experiences working in the company was being asked to be on Ted Turner's board, and I saw the value creation from owning networks was stunning. New channels, international opportunities, synergy, many things that Turner Broadcasting built for decades. And, ironically enough, while multitasking between slacking around checking my Twitter feed and trying to write up my SAP too, I came across a tweet that Comcast announced a bid to buy number 2 on this list of subscribers, Time Warner Cable, which was formerly owned by Time Warner, a company which merged with Ted Turner's company, Turner Broadcasting, nearly 20 years ago. The deal is for $45 billion in stocks and is still pending regulatory approval. This was a huge announcement that has had major implications on this project, as the potential synergy gained through this deal would give Comcast a huge advantage in the market. If you can remember on the last slide, Time Warner Cable was number 2 in subscribers to Comcast's 21 million with over 11 million. Number 3 on the list, AT&T, has just over 5 million. There are tons of articles online criticizing the deal, saying Comcast would own too much market share and would have too much leverage in negotiations with programmers of video content. This is kind of like the Walmart case, specifically how Walmart has tons of leverage in their negotiations with suppliers. Basically, it seems Comcast's strategy revolves around mergers and acquisitions. Each of their lines outside of cable communications has basically been an acquisition in and of itself. By combining their resources with Time Warner Cable, Comcast will have created economies of scale, thereby increasing net revenues and decreasing net costs. This would suggest cost leadership is also a large aspect of their strategy. It seems Comcast will continue to build a very strong competitive advantage, but is it sustainable? Now, we will look into each business line. I already gave a good background on cable communications, their primary line, and where they currently stand. It is worth mentioning, however, that they have branded this line as Xfinity. The red states are ones where this service is currently being provided. What kind of issues do they face? Well, how many of you are Comcast/Xfinity subscribers? That was a rhetorical question. You don't need to raise your hands. I figure a lot of you are, as we don't really have much of an option living in Oakland. Now, how many of you are satisfied with your service? Crickets. As shown by the poll on the right, and many others that are out there, this has been a huge criticism of Comcast, and one that we strongly recommend should be improved upon. Think about the Valentine's Day massacre case in class involving JetBlue. JetBlue said it was the growth trap, or growing too fast, and the Valentine's Day massacre exemplified this by showing carelessness in the way of customer service. Clearly, as discussed in the overview, Comcast has done a lot of good things to develop their brand and grow as a company, appeasing their shareholders. However, they need to appease their customers as well. They need to provide better quality service in order to improve their overall image. Another recommendation we have is for them to provide more in the way of innovation. Typically, top players in their industries are known for advancement and innovation. Think about the Apple case and all of their innovations throughout the years. Think also about Google, who could prove to be a threat to Comcast with Google Fiber, a project that will provide an internet connection speed of 1 gigabyte per second for both download and upload, which is roughly 100 times faster than what most Americans have. Comcast is talking a big game, especially now, saying that the deal with Time Warner Cable will allow for more innovation, but they need to deliver on this, especially with a new generation of competitors, such as Google, that could be on the way. Now, while this is their most significant line, we also have some suggestions for their lesser lines as well. After all, if Comcast wants to continue to grow as a company, it may be a good idea to also draw some focus to their other lines.
Okay, thank you, Stan. My name's Evan, and today I'm going to be talking about the Cable Networks division. So, when Comcast acquired NBC Universal in 2013, they took full control of their existing cable networks. And these include networks for general audiences such as CNBC, MSNBC, NBC Sports Network, and USA. And they also have a diverse niche lineup, which includes G4, Sprout, Clue, Esquire, Sci-Fi, Chiller, Mundos, and the Golf Channel. So Comcast's acquisition of NBC Universal saw various benefits arise, mostly in the form of cost reduction. So through this vertical integration, they were able to cut operating and production costs through the use of NBC's existing facilities, basically as opposed to Comcast having to acquire new space and assemble new equipment. And also, now that Comcast owns much of the content that they provide to end users, they've eliminated many licensing costs. So considering these points, it's apparent that Comcast has taken great strides toward maximizing efficiency by vertically integrating its entertainment products and its services as a provider. However, there are still some strategic issues that the firm must address if it wants to continue thriving within the cable networks industry. It seems that Comcast has historically been an expansionist company, so the firm must be a little wary of falling into a growth trap if it plans to acquire any additional networks, and this could actually potentially happen in the near future as they've had plans to acquire Time Warner Cable. Also, another threat to the cable networks industry as a whole would be the emergence of other media forms, such as Netflix and various internet sources like illegal downloading. In order for Comcast specifically to sustain a competitive advantage in this environment, they must increasingly deliver new and exclusive content to consumers as a first mover, while also observing technological changes and remaining on the cutting edge of industry trends. And lastly, Comcast must actively communicate and negotiate with regulators such as the FCC, because regulatory sanctions could potentially have a major effect on the firm's profitability and overall ability to operate, as they can be quite limiting and essentially could put a network out of operation if one little thing falls out of line.
All right, thank you, Evan. I'm Joe, and I'll be talking about Comcast broadcast television segment. Comcast Corporation's acquisition of NBC Universal on March 19th, 2013 is what gave them a competitive advantage and is what made them a very influential company in the broadcast television industry. This move established Comcast as a media titan and was a great strategic move on their part because it allowed them to take full control of the already well-established centerpiece of American news and entertainment. NBC Universal's history goes right in line with the emergence of broadcast television. Despite all of NBC Universal's prior success, it was extremely important for Comcast to integrate a strategy that ensured both companies' missions and objectives would fit together into a solid system. There is no doubt that this acquisition has been a success. However, we have some concern when looking at the segment's revenue and operating income. As previously shown, Comcast Corporation is broken down into five business segments. You can see by the figures shown that Comcast Broadcast Television segment generated revenues of over $7.1 billion. This was the third highest amount of revenue generated out of the five segments. However, out of the revenue, Comcast only had an operating income of $247 million, which, as you can see, is the lowest of the five segments. We understand that there are a lot of costs in the broadcast television industry. However, we recommend that Comcast finds a way to cut costs to do away with this disadvantage. Some ways they could achieve this are through more low-cost reality television shows and more news and talk segments. However, they need to be sure that at the same time they do not lose any of their audience. In order to remain successful, Comcast needs to pay close attention to industry trends in their external environment, especially technological change and advancements. Some of these threats are the massive upswing in usage of multi-screen and mobile platforms, cord cutting, and consumer-generated content. We believe that NBC Universal can satisfy the new consumer demands as long as they position themselves accordingly to deal with these threats. There are some key factors for success that we recommend Comcast implements into their strategies in order to continue to be successful in this industry. We have developed suggestions for both near-term and intermediate action plans. In their near-term action plan, we recommend that they refine their revenue structure for mobile and tablet devices, place more emphasis on category targeting, and have more active sales development. As for the intermediate plan, we think Comcast should develop more advanced accessibility to mobile products, cross-platform programs over all digital platforms, and try to develop new sales partnerships. We believe that if Comcast keeps these recommendations in mind, their broadcast television segment can create new competitive advantages and continue to have great success.
Hello, I'm Eric, and I will be talking about the theme park industry today.
Many are aware of the brand power and broad appeal that Disney has. As the chart on the bottom right shows, Universal Studios are second with a 15% market share. The top two companies currently engage in practices in the southern United States where they can exploit year-round cash flows. Additionally, there is a high threat of substitution in this area. Disney and Universal both have parks near each other, so switching costs are low for the consumers. A main use of cost is the wages to the employees. As I highlighted in my PESTEL analysis of the external environment, a drastic increase in the minimum wage could negatively impact profit margins for the parks. Finally, there has been an industry-wide shift to incorporate elements of toys and characters into rides. Obviously, Disney has been doing this for years because of the broad scope of their operations. Universal Studios, as I will elaborate on soon, created the Wizarding World of Harry Potter a few years back to compete. The main reason for this was because, as the graph on the bottom left shows, a quarter of the visitors are under the age of 18. Now that I have talked about the theme park industry as a whole, let me mention a few more important things about Universal Studios before I give my recommendations for the future. First, the main two Universal Studios parks are in Orlando, Florida and Hollywood, California. Many are unaware, however, that they have recently opened parks in Japan and Singapore as well. All of the parks are operated in a similar manner and provide customers with the same quality and attention to detail. As I mentioned before, customers have the high ability to switch parks very easily because of their relative location. Universal Studios look to eliminate this choice by choosing a cost leadership strategy with admission prices. By charging a few dollars less than their competitors, they are hoping to increase attendance and have customers spend more money inside of the park. Finally, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter opened in 2010 in Orlando. This section is themed as if customers were really in the movie, with Hogwarts, which is seen below, being a focal point of the park. Many want to even try the butterbeer that was used in the movie. They are currently building a similar park for the Hollywood location as well. Finally, I have two recommendations for the theme park business line of Comcast. First would be to open a new park in the northern part of the United States. As the map shows, California, Texas, and Florida have a large number of parks in them. Adding a park in the north would allow Universal to establish a strong relationship with customers in that region. Additionally, they would be able to operate without a Disney park being in that area. This would allow them to charge higher prices and gain more cash flows. We have talked a lot in class about fit. Many would ask if opening a park only operating in the spring, summer, and fall would properly align with our company. I believe that this would be an effective strategy and would positively differentiate themselves from Disney. The other recommendation I would have is to create a system to incentivize their employees. When people go to a theme park, they often remember how well they were treated and how effective the customer service was. If Universal Studios was able to promote an even better customer experience, as the flight attendants of Southwest Airlines have, they would be able to keep existing customers and encourage them to return.
And now Dan will talk about the filmed entertainment sector.
About filmed entertainment segment of Comcast business. A little segment background. Comcast's filmed entertainment division falls mostly under the umbrella of Universal Pictures. Universal's main business ventures include producing, licensing, marketing, and distributing live-action and animated movies, as well as live stage plays. In general, they create or purchase screenplays for movies in theater, which they in turn produce themselves via Universal Studios. They retain licensing rights for their productions, as well as purchasing additional licensing. Despite a long-standing presence and status, Universal wasn't able to crack the top 5 in overall gross earnings and market share for major studios from 2005 until 2012. However, last year in 2013, Universal came in third overall in total gross earnings with $1.433 billion gross, good for a 13.1% market share. Through April 6th of this year, Universal currently ranks second overall in market share and gross earnings with a gross of $385.4 million and a market share of 14.8%. These are promising numbers that demonstrate Comcast's position as a top competitor on the rise in the filmed entertainment industry. I do, however, have some recommendations for Comcast moving forward. With Universal having healthy amounts of revenues coming in, now would be a good time to focus on trying to cut their operating costs. My first recommendation is to achieve greater levels of efficiency in their core competencies. Having lower costs leads to higher profit margins on revenues they're currently bringing in. My second recommendation for Comcast is looking into either buying an existing film equipment manufacturer or vertically integrating and starting up its own filming equipment manufacturer. I think that buying an existing equipment manufacturer company is a better option because they will already have a level of expertise, know-how, and operations in place. Conversely, if they feel they can attain a cost or price advantage by creating their own manufacturer, they should do so. By making their own manufacturer, they could open the possibility of selling in-house to itself at a discounted price, while having the ability to sell equipment elsewhere for a more expensive market price. Either way, with diversification or integration, they can't go wrong.